Oh, lovely. What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Street Notes. Been a little while, mainly because I was doing a bunch of travelling and also work is pretty busy, and partly because I had so much footage from London that it was actually daunting to try and go through, but finally we're doing it. In today's video you may see that I'm using a Fujifilm X-Pro3 along with a Voigtlander 21mm f4 lens. The X-Pro3 came from Lens Rentals. I've said bad things about this camera in the past, but I wanted to give it a fair shake because I know that underneath it all is actually a very good camera, and I'm just not a fan of the screen. However, as you'll see, I do actually use it quite a lot throughout this video. I want to take a second to acknowledge that this video was made possible by Lens Rentals. They are the largest and best online camera gear rental company. They sent me that Fujifilm X-Pro3 as well as a Fuji 35mm 1.4 lens. And so if you want to try out some gear, to rent some gear before you buy it, follow the link in the description, use the code Liam15, you'll get 15% off your order at Lens Rentals. And even if you like the gear enough that you know you want to keep it, you can also get a quote to keep the gear, and I'm telling you, I almost did not send it back. That's how much I enjoyed that X-Pro3, but we'll talk about that in another video, and back to Street Notes. Now, this is the start of the first day. There is the parliamentary opening ceremony things going on just outside the Houses of Parliament, and I'm floating around there about to meet up with another street photographer that I know from London. This guy here, his name's Paul Harrison. I'll put his Instagram up on the screen as well as link him down below. He became a tour guide for the day since he is a professional tour guide in London, which as it turns out is a pretty handy job to have for a street photographer. Otherwise you're a pleb. This is really cheap looking in New York, so we'll go. As you can see, it's very different from the Denver weather. It was cloudy and overcast all day long. So I personally am struggling a little bit as I don't have like the light kind of directing me as to where I need to be shooting. As I go through today's video, you're going to see a lot of the sort of throwaway shots that didn't work out. Most of the time what I'm doing is just shooting to try and sort of warm up to things, get myself more comfortable, especially in this new environment, and kind of test the waters to see how people react and to kind of just make myself more comfortable. And although some people wait until they see something that they definitely like before they shoot, I trend towards just shooting, and I tend to sort of find the pictures I like from doing that. It's kind of this experimentation and just trying things and failing until I find the situation that works. Like here, I focused too close to the foreground, I should have focused further back. But this picture here I quite like, and I did not expect anything of it at the time. This woman was, I don't know if she was about to sneeze, if she was just rubbing her face or whatever it was. I had to crop this photo slightly because I was just a bit further away than I wanted to be. I like that gesture, and although the composition is not particularly great, I just like it. Did a lot of photos where I was just kind of rolling through scenes, not really expecting too much, and this one, I liked how things were spaced out, but the composition wasn't quite there, and it was a little bit too cluttered on the left. So I took one more shot as I got closer, and this cleaned things up a little bit, and the people on the right are kind of badly overlapped, but I do quite like the gesture of the person in the foreground, and the two guys in the background are sort of mirroring each other, holding their coffees. And in the middle, yes, those two people are terribly overlapped, but they kind of become one subject and they're just filling out that gap in the frame. Again, just taking random shots as I'm coming up the stairs here, hoping for something to work out. And I do like this couple holding their hands as they're going down the stairs. and the gesture of the woman holding her bag and the guy holding the umbrella in the background. This group here, I was going towards them and I saw that there was just like a group of people sitting there, but as I got close, this lady handed her phone across to who I assume is her daughter, and the guy in the foreground kind of yawned and looked over across the frame, and I think that made it. I kind of like this scene overall. This, I think, was the important people driving into Parliament, not exactly, maybe the Prince or someone like that. I saw this sceptre thing hanging out the window of the car. I've been tending to gravitate towards people with their hands behind their back. It's something I always see in the United States, and I saw a lot of this in London, so I gravitated towards these again. I don't think they're great pictures, but I just tend to collect them anyways. A lot of people were gathering on this corner, but it was very, very tight and compact. Again, this photo is not very well composed. There's kind of a lot of mess and bad overlaps, but there's still something about it that I think was okay and kind of interesting. And actually, Paul, who I was shooting with, got a much better photo of these three women a little bit later on. I went back over to the other side of the street because things were a bit more open and I could move around more freely, and I happened upon this guy holding these binoculars. He was, I don't know what he was trying to zoom in on, but he was there for a little while and I had some time to kind of work that scene, although I do think the first picture I took was my favourite of that. Here I was waiting for someone who was blowing a lot of smoke from their vape, but they didn't do it in the same way the next time that they turned around. So the shot didn't really work out how I hoped. Then right beside me was this kind of scene here, which I thought was okay. I thought this guy standing on a stool while taking pictures, I don't know if he's an actual photojournalist or if he was just out for himself. And I walked away from this, but then came back shortly after, and I got this scene, which I think is very busy, but is quite interesting because there's just this odd sort of cluster of things, particularly this guy picking up his bike with tennis balls and rackets, and it's like one of those fold-away bikes. So I just thought it was a kind of it was a weird combination of things. Oh, lovely. That's really good.
As soon as the rain started, they put on those little rain things.
Yeah.
Like,
Perfect.
You're my ladies. I'm going to sort the fuck out of you. They've gone now.
Notice this police officer with her hands behind her back and kind of trying to set myself up to get a shot of that. I waited for a second because I knew she'd be aware of my presence at first, and then snuck up behind her as she was talking to somebody and got this picture. And I liked it's got one of those pens in it that has like 4 different pens in one. That was kind of a detail that I liked from this. Walking away from the parliamentary opening ceremony thing, I come across this other ceremony that's happening nearby, and there's horses marching around and stuff, and I thought it could be an interesting scene, and then I backed off a little bit to try and put something in the foreground, which was these 2 people who were talking. Had I had some foresight, I would have saw that this person walking through with the white ponytail kind of matched up with this horse here, and maybe there was something to sort of juxtapose there or whatever, but it kind of almost looks like the horse's tail has came over this person's shoulder from the background. It's probably kind of pushing it there, but I just thought it was something that could have been put in the frame in a more interesting way.
Hey, there he is. How's it going, man? Nice to actually meet you.
Here I quickly met up with Roman Fox, who most people who watch my videos have probably seen some of his stuff. He was someone that started YouTube around about the same time as me, and I actually remember him having about 900 followers when I had 1,000, and things have easily flipped the other way for our channels now. That was cool. It's really interesting to meet up with lots of different people who I've known online for quite some time, and actually sort of meet them in person, which is a little bit surreal.
And then obviously all the shops like that. Sorry.
This was a scene that I did not spend very long at, but in the short time that I slowed down and walked past it, I thought the shot was quite interesting. We've got people spread throughout this frame, and they're kind of all holding things and moving stuff, and it's a full frame. I like it.
For me, I think it's probably like learning from YouTube and just sort of generally.
Although this video is quite long, I spent a lot of time shooting in London and trying things and failing a lot. I was in a very new place, the light's very different, and just the way of shooting needs to be much different than it is in Colorado. I find in Colorado I can find compositions, I have interest in light, and there's more colours to play with, but in London it's much more messy. It's closer to the New York style thing, where it's much more about that sort of surrealism and just gestures and interesting people and things like that. And maybe I'm wrong about that, maybe it's just because it's my first time there, so you know, things are different. Here you'll see I've met up with Gary and Sarah. I'll also stick their Instagrams on the screen or in the description. These are also folks that I've known online for a while now, particularly through Clubhouse. So walked around with them and shot for a little bit, but I spent a lot of time actually just having lunch with these guys and chatting about YouTube and Instagram and Clubhouse and all that sort of thing.
He went through the same thing as I did, but from the opposite side.
The sun had finally come out, so I was getting a bit more interest for me in my shots, and I particularly like this one just because of the gesture and the expression on this person's face. And I think this area is the start or the middle of Oxford Street, and there's just a lot of sort of crossing paths of people here. This is kind of reminiscent of a New York street corner with lots of people going all different directions. I like this one because of the lady doing the gesture on the left. There's the guy halfway down the stairs, in between those, the barriers in the middle, kind of filling the frame out, the person at the top of the stairs as well. Then this lady on the phone, and then the person filling out the frame on the right hand side. Kind of a messy background, but overall I don't mind that shot.
Liam Gawler himself, flying visit, mate, isn't it?
What's happening? I don't know what to say usually when this happens.
Don't have to say anything, mate.
Videos. I
Your
need to
looks
say,
alone,
Gary, you
your
look...
looks alone are killing it, mate.
Now here I tried to push myself to get closer to this guy who was in this sort of spot of nice light, but I didn't quite know how to frame it. I should probably have done more of an angle. I got right in front of him. He did see me and he didn't really react, but I think I'm just too far away, maybe sort of thrown off a little bit by this slightly wider than normal lens, but I think I could have incorporated a much better composition here. These old phone boxes interested me. These are kind of relics that are going to go away soon, and although it's not the red phone box that are the classic ones, it's a more modern one. Still nobody uses them, obviously. And as I was photographing it, Sarah walked in and picked up the handset, and I think that actually just finished off the picture pretty well. And now that it's sunny, I gravitated towards this colourful wall for a second. I don't think it was a very good idea for me to do that. It didn't really work out. I mean, it had a nice, interesting light on it, but really it's just going to be people walking through this wall. And I was hoping maybe I would find something in some kind of interesting juxtaposition with the flamingo handbag. If maybe somebody had a flamingo shirt on or something, it could have done something, but it didn't. Nothing really panned out. So Gary took a picture of me and then I moved on.
Look at this nice, like, flowery stuff.
Now here I met Soho George, who is quite famous online, and particularly people like 6 Street Under have taken nice pictures of him, and he was a very nice guy, and I didn't ask to take his picture, but he allowed me to. I think he expected that's why I was stopping him, and so I took a relatively rushed picture of him that I don't think was a great portrait, but it was really nice to sort of meet this guy in person as well, which is another strange, surreal thing to meet a random person on the internet that you know through other people's pictures of them. Shooting backlight here, which is not a common thing for me, but I noticed this guy using his vape pen, and I probably caught a little bit too close to the end of him blowing the smoke out, but I just thought between the flare and the smoke in this picture there was a nice, interesting haze that I quite enjoyed, and I like the flare. It's hard to get pictures of people running, but I liked this woman in the red that was running here, and her hair's kind of all over the place. I liked the light that was on this guy, so I kind of rolled through, took a quick picture, and I think this is not bad. I do like the light on this. I overexposed it at the time, so it was a little bit tricky to bring back and not make it look overexposed, but I think it worked out okay. Here I missed a really good gesture, the guy with the umbrella there, but I was looking ahead and I wasn't quite ready because I was looking to frame this person within that doorway there, which is not as good a shot, and I'm really bummed that I didn't get the guy doing the gesture with the umbrella. Now here, coming up with this fancy looking sort of grocery store shop. I didn't actually pay attention to what it was. I thought it was like a wine and cheese store, but this guy was like moving lobster or something like that in there, and there was nice light coming in the window, and then this chap rolls up. And I'm not really sure what he was doing. I thought he was actually legitimately looking at things to go and buy or something like that, but then so he stood in front of me for a minute and then he kind of walked off, and he seemed to be smiling the entire time. And I'm actually wondering if he knew what I was doing, and I was like, oh, I'll fill out your frame for you. Now Paul's shown me this street corner where at the right time of day, when it's sunny, you can stand right there and cars will kind of come past you, and people's faces within the cars will be lit up by the sun that's coming from behind you. And the cars are so close to the road and moving so slowly because it's central London that you can get some quite interesting shots. One of the first of which was this lady with her mouth open, which I thought was probably the best one that I got there. But we continued to stand here for, you know, a good 10-15 minutes. Quite like this one as well, with the guy with the thumb up to his lips or something like that, whatever he was doing. And I got a few others, but a lot of them didn't really work out super well. Back in this area, I think it's called Oxford Circus, I'm not sure, it's on Oxford Street. We were hoping that the sun would come out, but the clouds had kind of set in and we weren't going to get that nice late afternoon angled light. But this is still a good area to shoot in to try and make some compositions. And this was kind of towards the end of the day. We were going to stop and grab a drink for a bit, and I noticed this just kind of colourful area and I gravitated towards it so I could get that pink and the yellow in the background. But one of the first things that happened was this lady walks in, she kind of filled out that frame in the background and she does this gesture towards her hair. So we've got all the colours of the shop fronts, we've got the ads that have hand gestures in them, and then the person filling out the frame who's also gesturing. I waited here a bit longer, but that was the first one was the best one that I got there, I think. So that was it for my first day of shooting in London. It was very cool to meet some people who I'd known for quite a while online. I'm not entirely sure that I got many pictures that I really like when I was in London in my time there. It was a very different shooting experience from what I even expected. But that being said, I think the X-Pro3 is one of the best cameras that I could have had for shooting in London. It was near perfect for shooting street photography a lot in London. So anyways, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.